Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Dennis Stockman, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Air Force is Corporal Ingrid Cogler. We warmly welcome the family of Private Francis Vivian Foreman, whose story will be told shortly. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria, and RSL Queensland who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During the ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the pool of reflection by families and visitors to the memorial. Please stand and join in singing the national anthem. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight we'll read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and operations for more than a century. But first we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today we remember and pay tribute to Private Francis Vivian Foreman. Francis Foreman was born in 1891 near Inverell, New South Wales, the eldest son and one of 8 children of George and Catherine Foreman. He attended school at the Inverell State School. His family lived in nearby Uralla, south of Inverell, and it was in this region that Francis later worked as a shearer. Francis enlisted into the Australian Imperial Force on the 3rd of January 1916 in Armidale. He was placed into the 33rd Battalion. Due to the high number of local recruits, the battalion was called New England's Own. He sailed from Sydney in early May 1916, bound for England, where he would spend a number of months training and preparing for battle. On the 16th of September, he transferred into the 2nd Battalion, and a day later sailed for the Western Front. Foreman initially saw service in the muddy Ypres region of Belgium, and in December 1916 transferred south to the Somme region of northern France. Foreman spent the freezing winter months of 1916 and 1917 in the trenches of the Somme battlefield. He did not take part in any major battles in this period, but instead faced the hardships of a war of attrition. Foreman and his unit would periodically man a section of the trench and occasionally face sporadic German artillery fire. When not at the front, they would spend their time resting and training. In early 1917, the Germans began to make a tactical retreat to the Hindenburg Line, a shortened and newly fortified series of defences on the Western Front. Throughout this period, the 2nd Battalion advanced towards the German defences. On the 8th and 9th of April 1917, Foreman and the 2nd Battalion were able to take the towns of Ermey and Demicourt from the German occupation in heavy fighting. On the 19th of April, the 2nd Brigade came under German shelling by regular artillery and grenades known as pineapple bombs. A number of injuries were sustained by the battalion. Foreman was the only man killed. He was 26 years old. He was buried in the vicinity of Ermey, the town he had fought so hard to take only weeks before, but his grave was lost in subsequent fighting. Today, his name is recorded on the memorial wall at Villers-Bretonneux, along with nearly 11,000 other Australians who died in France and have no known grave. Private Francis Vivian Foreman is listed on the Roll of Honour on my right, among almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private Francis Vivian Foreman, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of Last Post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Poziere or in the low scrub at Gallipoli with his poor tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain has thought in his last moments, well, it's over, but in Australia they'll be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. Thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial, and good evening.